My name is Diane Hnath. Cortland, New York. Family court corruption.
And if you will, look at me, and when I ask a question, try to incorporate, Darlene's a pro at it, incorporate the question into your response, because my voice isn't heard. I don't even have a microphone on. I didn't want this to be about me. I want it to be about everybody else. So why don't you go back and this is totally separate from your statement. So include the kinds of things you covered in your statement. Let's go back to pre-pit bull accident days.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me, you have children?
Two.
2 kids?
2 children.
Okay. And you have a young lady here with you today.
I have a boy and a girl, 8 and 5, well, soon to be 5.
And you have some dogs.
Yes. I have a 5-year-old pit bull lab mix, and he's also believed to be a boxer in there somehow. We can't explain how yet. And I have a pit bull coon dog mix.
And these dogs hang around with the kids?
Yes, they do. They are always around the kids.
And are they dangerous dogs?
No.
Do you keep them pinned up, or are they house dogs, or what are they?
Since this whole thing happened, I keep them caged and separated just to prevent anybody else from doing it. But before that, I would be able to let them run around the house together, backyard together, take them for walks together. They did really well. I mean, the occasional incident where a nip would happen or they'd push each other over, but that's about it. You know,
Right.
normal things.
The 2 dogs will interact.
Yeah.
And is that what somebody ultimately complained about?
Yes.
Is 2 dogs playing and or fighting a little bit?
Yes. That is exactly what somebody complained about.
So you're here today because somebody complained about 2 dogs nipping at each other.
Oh no, what they said is they were full out fighting with my son in the middle. And although 2 pit bulls, which I don't understand how a 4-year-old child did not get hurt between all of this, how that's even possible. You know, I mean, they've got pretty big teeth, really big mouths, and I don't understand how something so small that's supposedly in the middle didn't get touched.
Okay. So who made the complaint and how did you learn about it?
It was a caseworker, and I found out through a friend of mine who had heard them talking about it online, back and forth like Facebook messaging. And they had said, oh, we should just say this, this, and this, and they'll never find it indicated because there's not enough proof to it. And a friend of mine had sent me copies of this and told me about it. And somehow or another, they wound up disappearing in the midst of trying to enter it all to evidence. So I don't even have those anymore. This caseworker is also good friends with the current soon-to-be ex-wife of the guy I'm taking care of this dog for. And the main reason I'm taking care of this dog is because we were trying to avoid a 4-month quarantine on the islands of Hawaii. You know, you have treatments done here. You have microchipping, blood work, rabies, all sorts of things like that done here, and you can get immediate release at the airport. That's what we were working on. It's just finances weren't available to get him there immediately.
All right, so you had 1 dog and brought another dog in to help out a friend.
Yeah, well, it started as I brought the first dog in to help him out,
Okay.
and then I got the puppy.
I see. So they're his dogs.
Well, one's mine, one's his. The older one is his, the puppy is mine.
Right. So when did this alleged event happen, and who complained about it, and how does the Facebook, sounds like conspiracy, fit into the picture?
Supposedly happened on the 28th of January this past year, but I wasn't reported until around midnight on the 4th of February. Or no, the 3rd of February, just before midnight. And it was said that somebody was at my house and witnessed this. Only one person came to my house that day, and I actually talked to her later, and she said that she saw nothing that looked suspicious, nothing that looked like anything bad was happening. But yet, at the same time, this caseworker, who was also on the whole Facebook mix type thing, wound up calling in on a mandated reporter's line, to my understanding, telling them that my dog had an aggressive nature. I was aware that it had an aggressive nature, and I brought in a puppy anyways, endangering my kids.
All right, so February 3rd, this gets reported, and you're told about it at that point?
No, I wasn't told until late March what had happened and how it had all gone down. They came on February 4th, told me that I was being under investigation with a cop. And as I was opening my door, the cop was tugging on his cuffs, telling me, lock your dogs up and let us in. Again, I asked for a warrant. She said, we'll get a warrant, but we'll get the warrant to remove your kids, not to investigate. Based on the permanency law of New York, that was a pretty good odd. They could do that. So I got scared. I wound up letting her in. That's when she looked at me and she goes, now, you're under investigation for failure to protect. Please pull your child's shirt up. So I pulled up my son's shirt, let her look. She goes, now I'd like to see his legs. Pulled down his pants so they could look. No marks. They walked through my house, checked my refrigerator, checked my cupboards, checked everything, and then left, telling me a caseworker will be in touch. What I didn't know was it was going to wind up being the mother of the children of this very same man I got the dog from. I was unaware of that. At first, it didn't click when she had called, and I had known the name sounded familiar. I didn't know exactly how, but immediately after I got off the phone, I said, wait a minute, now I know where this name comes from. I had immediately called back to the office, talked to her supervisor, and said, listen, I know this woman. I am good friends with her daughter. Well, I was, and I have very close connection to the father of her children. And what they did is they said, oh, really? Yes. I said, well, sign the releases. Shut up. You won't have a problem. I refused to sign releases, used quite a few vulgarities. So they called several times after that, informing me that they wanted me to sign more releases. And I said I would not sign them until I got a new caseworker. I was eventually closed as being, what was the word? Difficult with the office. I was being very difficult. That's what they said to me. And that's what they put on my record, which I didn't think was fair. I didn't think I was being difficult. I think I was trying to negotiate quite a few times. I want a new caseworker, and I will sign your releases. I never got a home visit. She sat in her office and called several times, demanding that I go into her office to sign releases, demanding that I go to the office for a meeting, demanding everything. Not once did I ever have a caseworker in my home outside of the initial visit.
Were you involved with family services or child protective services prior to this?
3 years prior, I had a nervous breakdown. And I wound up having to go into the hospital where they were brought in, but it was unfounded at that point. And they said everybody's entitled to at least one per lifetime, which they seemed more understanding at that point.
Okay. All right, so was your son ever examined by a doctor or hospital?
Yes. I took both my kids because I had the feeling they were going to shift it to the doctors on the 17th of February and had it noted with the doctor's office that neither one of them had any sign of ever having had been bitten by any dog.
All right, so what did these wonderful people do next?
They then turned and said that I had been bitten, not my kids. Yeah, I said the same thing. Wow.
Like I remember seeing a show once where I think it was Racehorse Haynes, who was a famous lawyer. He said, well, we got several potential strategies for how we defend this. I never owned a gun. I wasn't carrying a gun that night. What's a gun? You know,
Yeah.
all these different things. Oh, wait a minute. Well, the kids, not the kids. Let's go for the mom. Were you ever bitten?
No, never.
And were you even there at the time that they alleged this thing took place?
We weren't even home almost all day. I think somebody stopped for maybe 5 minutes early that morning and left. And immediately afterwards, we left to go to Syracuse for like an all-day event to prepare for a hockey game.
All right, so did you go to the doctor to get examined?
No, I did not. I found it pointless because I actually asked them, I go, if I had been bitten, how is this a child protective matter?
Well, that's a good question. How did they respond?
Said because your children were present.
You're still putting them at risk.
Well, I had actually told them, I go, well, if you want to play that game, that is perfectly fine. And I had had a meeting with them a couple of days later where they had said it again, you were bitten on your arms. And I had deliberately, on this cold day in March, it had to have been maybe 20-something degrees outside, wore a long jacket, shorts, and a tank top because I had the feeling they were going to move the location of this bite. So in their office, I ripped off my jacket, showed them my entire open fleshed body and said, where was I bitten? And they just looked at me and I said, pick a place, look for it, and if you can't find it, I will not be afraid to turn around and show you my bare bottom. Just to ensure that they knew nobody was ever bitten. So then they wound up taking that off the table, which I found incredibly odd.
All right, so now who are they blaming?
Oh no, now they're saying that this did happen, nobody was injured, but they know this happened. Based on records held at the SPCA claiming he had attacked animals prior to this, which made no sense because they had said that he had prior bitten 2 people while attacking animals and had a record at that local health department. I actually went and got that record. It was not my dog. It was not my dog at all. They wound up sending me a letter stating your dog has absolutely no record in our department and provided me with a record of another dog that previously lived on the property. So that's the other thing that kind of threw me for a loop. It's almost like, okay, now I understand they're blaming him for another dog's actions. But everything started making more sense when I started getting records from the SPCA, which didn't match up to vet records from my dog from where he's been attacked. So it's almost like they're saying, oh, he attacked another animal, but yet he's the one that had to go get stitches, which I don't see how that's possible. You know, you can't get attacked and have to be treated for being attacked at the same time. So that kind of threw me off. But yet, when I brought these to the attention of Child Services, they just kind of, you falsified records. That's a false vet record, or that's a false health department record. They just wouldn't accept anything, except for what they were being told by someone else.
So, why did they do all this to you? Explain it in a short soundbite.
Personally, I think they did it because they were upset at the fact that they thought I was having an affair with the same person, the same man that I was taking care of this dog for. And we're just friends.
Did you ever have an affair with him?
No.
Say that as a soundbite.
No, I had never had an affair with him.
All right. And is that just a suspicion, or did somebody say something since you knew she was involved? It was a natural 2 + 2.
Later on, the current soon-to-be ex-wife of his, which is the main reason why he left her in the first place, right after she left, he made plans to leave too. She moved out on him, he moved to Hawaii. She had actually made a statement stating that I never should have gotten myself involved with him in the first place. Making calls to my grandmother's house, telling her that I ruined her marriage, which was absolutely ridiculous. And then more recently, he started getting calls in Hawaii telling him that she told him she would ruin my life. So that was the worst part about it. That was the hardest part.
Some of these things sound very familiar, don't they?
Do. Somebody's turned a blind eye twice.
Let me check a setting here just a second.
It's a bit more complicated.
Okay, keep going.
Within days of when he left, she had actually taken the dog out of my back door when I wasn't there and took him to the SPCA and refused to tell anybody where he was, slapped cease and desist orders and everything else. As president of the SPCA, they hid him for a month, released him 2 days before Christmas after taking him the day after Thanksgiving with severe injuries and infections that I had to have treated.
And on what authority did she take the dog?
As president of the SPCA, she
President?
took him.
Oh, so they have authority to seize animals?
Apparently, by law, no, she didn't. Not on the grounds that they said they did, which was domestic dispute. At the time, it was a misdemeanor. Currently, it's a felony to do that. So she did this, not telling us anything. If we asked, we were threatened by the SPCA with harassment. We were threatened with violation of a court order, which there was none. We were threatened with everything. When I finally obtained a lawyer and made a public announcement that if I didn't have my dog back by Christmas, I was going to sue the county. My dog was returned to me within 5 days. But when I got him back, he had lacerations and infections under his neck, and he had muscle atrophy to boot on the paw that was injured, where they said he had done it by pawing at a kennel door. Muscle atrophy, the limb is unusable. He couldn't have done it.
All right, where do we go from here? What's next?
Well, I think one of the biggest problems is I'd wound up costing her position at the SPCA because I had reported to legislators and the Better Business Bureau. And just as I had done so, my dog was being released, and she was no longer president. So I think this was more of a malicious, vindictive thing, trying to cost me my kids because I cost her a high position.
Well, did she succeed in costing you your kids?
No, I have my children, and I currently have a hearing in August to prove my innocence on what they called inadequate guardianship.
Where does guardianship play into this?
Well, they called it inadequate guardianship because I failed to exercise the minimum degree of care for my children.
What's your hope for the hearing? You figure
My hope for the hearing is to expose them for the lies that they did with all the documents that I had collected over time, considering they had no physical proof other than somebody's say-so, no black and white proof other than somebody's say-so, and I have everything in black and white showing nothing ever happened.
do you have an attorney?
Yes.
Is he with the biggest law firm in town?
He is with a law firm from another town, and it's a pretty decently sized law firm.
You ask him whether or not he's got to fix in with the judge?
Oh, I didn't ask him that because I don't think I had to.
You might ask.
I didn't think I had to when the first thing he said is Cortland County, huh? He goes, yep, because every so often I got to deal with them. He goes, the problem down there is everybody is so tight-knit and legally bound that nobody can help anybody. Because I feel sorry for you down there. You know. So he said that with all of my paperwork, it looked good, that I would be able to get out of this entire accusation, that the whole thing would be dropped, and I'd finally be able to go back to living a normal life.
But he also told you that Cortland County is a tight-knit group and the cards are stacked against you.
Yeah, he did. But he said the way that he's going to fight it is that he is going to bring the facts forward, the physical facts, because he knows that they lack their physical facts.
Well, if you get there and he doesn't do that, you jump up and do it yourself.
Oh, absolutely. That's why I made sure he had only photocopies and I have everything original.
Because we've got a lady sitting here who the information wasn't presented. And I just had the same thing happen with another person. I've had it happen, I bet out of 250 interviews, 50 times they've had somebody, I know it was Ms. Leone. When her son was accused of assault on a police officer, when the police officer broke his fist, hitting him through the car window, when they had this boy pinned in, the court-appointed attorney, when it got time for them, she said the defense arrest, never presented a thing. Just horrible. So be on the balls of your feet.
Yeah.
The judge will probably give you all kinds of grief. Hopefully you got a good person, but if not,
Yeah, I've
you
been
gotta,
in
it's like with your health.
contact.
You gotta look out for your own health. You gotta look out for your own well-being in court.
I've been in contact with him several times, and he has actually gathered his own information as well.
Well, good.
So that helps. And I did do some research, and he actually has a really good overturn rate in cases like these. So I do a lot of researching because that's what keeps my mind steady, what keeps my mind calm, and sometimes could get me into trouble, but in the same respect, it just keeps me occupied to the point where I don't think about things. So.
All right, so you have some cautious confidence
Yes,
going in.
very much cautious, yes. Confidence, absolutely.
What else would you like to talk about? What needs to be done different?
What needs to be done differently is there needs to be something to ensure that they follow their state mandated procedures. Something needs to be done, like doing home visits. That is a state mandated procedure. She never did that. More facts need to be presented. Honestly, hearsay should be brought right out of the equation. It should be removed from the equation altogether. If you can't bring some sort of physical proof, it's got to stop. False reporting should not be a misdemeanor. It should be a felony because that is tampering with somebody's life. That's tampering with somebody's family. And if they go too far, it destroys not just the lives of the parents, but it completely destroys the children. And mentally, emotionally, sometimes physically. No, it's basically harassment and defamation all in one call. It's slander all in one call.
Well, you know, your problem, your situation is the same with almost everybody in every form of judicial or government corruption. If we were given our constitutional rights and the rights we have under the Bill of Rights, and if the laws and the rules of professional conduct and judicial conduct were all followed, we'd actually all be in pretty good shape. The trouble is, they don't, and there is nothing to mandate. There's no accountability.
Exactly. We need more laws protecting American families and less laws protecting caseworkers.
And we need to eliminate immunity for judges.
That too. Immunity for judges definitely needs to come down. That I find absolutely ridiculous. I don't see what makes them so special to the point to where, okay, they can judge you, they can determine whether or not you're fit or not, but yet can't be told that they're making a mistake.
Yeah, their claim is that they can't render these difficult decisions if they think everybody's going to sue them. Well, that doesn't fly because these guys say and do whatever they want, ignore the facts, ignore the law. They, you know, and it probably didn't happen instantly, but once they realize they could get away with anything, they do. So I have to say that a few dozen times a day just to keep me feeling good.
Another thing I would like to see happen here in the state of New York is the permanency law being revoked. It's a ridiculous law. It's the ability to remove children under the assumption. That's basically what it is. It's supposed to give them better access to allegedly abused children. That's all it is.
Well, it was was just a a Connecticut Supreme Court decision that says that predictive abuse or predictive negligence can't be 3%. It has to be a preponderance. So hopefully New York will wake up and do the same thing. But this idea of saying there's a 3% chance that this person with Down syndrome is not going to be able to care for their child properly is just not right.
Exactly.
And I met people that's exactly their situation. They said that because the husband is normal, the wife has Down syndrome. And,
There's several things I'd like to see done as far as child protective, like derivative neglect. I'd like to see that just go.
What's that?
Derivative neglect is guilty until proven innocent. They can, honestly, they will take your child from birth saying that you have the opportunity to neglect and abuse without neglecting and abusing.
And they call it derivative?
Derivative neglect.
That's the first I've heard of that.
That worries me because so many of the cases that I have looked into with my friends, they have all lost their infant babies, newborns, for derivative neglect. The opportunity to abuse and neglect without abusing and neglecting, but yet guilty of it until you're proven to be innocent, which is wrong. How can you neglect a child you've never met? How can you neglect a child you have yet been able to hold? Just doesn't make sense.
No, especially when we're given this fairy tale about innocent until proven guilty. Exactly. But in Child Protective Services, it's always, they can just presume whoever they want to be guilty, and the facts don't seem to matter. That's exactly it. I mean, we are going through so many different things that it's ridiculous, and these people just don't see it. I mean, if we're spotted out at a bar by a caseworker just once, and this could be the only time you've ever gone out, instantly you have an alcohol problem. But yet, they don't have an alcohol problem for having been at the same bar you were spotted in. I would have been adopted out because my parents both would occasionally take development with my brother and me for very good reasons. But back in the 1950s, that was normal. As a matter of fact, I remember a football coach in the 7th grade who took the leg off of a great old big teacher's desk and smacked some kid on the butt with it a few times for acting up in study hall. And, nothing ever happened. So,
I remember getting a paddle when I was
back then we didn't have Child Protective Services. We got along just fine.
Child Protective Services didn't come into effect until 1979. Which,
You're right, that was after my
There's one state where it supposedly happened in the 60s, but yeah, 76, 79 appears to be when there was this epidemic of installing it all over the country.
another thing I'd like to enforce is something I've been trying to promote myself. It's the parental rights amendment, where people are trying to make it so forced termination can no longer be in the cards for people. Forced termination of their rights and adoptions, things like that. We're trying to encourage this to the point where we want as many states as we can to sign this, because that is what they do. They take you, they put you through the ringer. They want you to do one thing after another, and then they say, oh, we're not accepting that. We're terminating your rights. I've seen that happen so many times.
Yeah, everybody needs to know never to sign anything those characters put in front of you.
Yeah, see,
Because they get you to sign something that gives away your rights and you don't even realize it.
I refused to sign anything.
Yeah.
I absolutely refused. I had actually gotten verbally attacked by my caseworker's daughter on a website. And it was the worst website she possibly could have picked. She had opted to do this on the Facebook page of Legally Kidnapped. And she confirmed everything. The conflict of interest. She confirmed that I was only simply caring for this dog. Everything on my behalf she confirmed, but yet she also divulged that her mother, the caseworker, ignored the fact she was on heroin for 2 years. She ignored the fact that her brother, who was just a couple of years older than her, was on heroin for a couple of years, who is now sitting in prison. for said heroin addiction, burglarizing places to support it. You know, I mean, that right there shows she was herself was doing something wrong. You know, she had stated that she didn't even want her son in the house when she wasn't there, basically telling him, go do your drugs elsewhere and come home stoned. That right there I would call negligence. But yet you're going to come after me and attack me for something that didn't happen, that I've proven again and again, when your own daughter just flat out said, we were on heroin and mom didn't know for 2 years, but yet she works for social services telling you how to be a parent.
You know, yours is the second pit bull mix story I've put out. I had a man in Massachusetts who they claimed it did something to some kids that weren't even anywhere close, and I think they put him in prison, jail for it for a long time.
Yeah, see, what they wanted me to do was put my dogs down, both of them. My 5-year-old pit bull and my 10-month-old pit bull. They wanted to see them both go down. They've even put it in my paper. She refuses to get rid of either dog, even though I've already shown paperwork that I'm trying to get one to Hawaii. You know, showing that I had all this stuff done to get them there, but you're telling me that I'm not intended to get rid of them.
Nice to meet you guys. Thank you. Email me.
Yep.
All right. What else would you like to say?
I would just like to see some major changes happen. Major changes. I would like to see more justice for families in family courts. There needs to be higher observation than just county. If this is a state matter, like I've been told through many Congresses, then it should be a state judge, not a county judge. If this is something that they're saying has happened, they should have to be able to provide some sort of factual proof, some sort of physical proof saying this is why we know this happened. Not because somebody said so, but you know what, get a photograph. Get a medical report. Get something to prove this happened. It's just like New York wants to instill a law that says slapping a caseworker is going to be as bad as slapping a cop, because apparently a lot of them have been being hit.
I'd like to slap a few.
I thought about that, but it's not worth the charge.
Yeah, we'd all go to prison for the rest of our lives.
I've thought about it to the point where I've actually, I think I said it to a friend of mine in a message, saying they want to make it a felony to hit a caseworker, so hunt one down and smack one now while it's still a misdemeanor. So I think I said it as a joke, but in a way, I think I meant it. In a way, I think I meant it, you know? But it was one of those things that came out as a joke and a message and got reposted again and again and again by several people as a status. It's going to be a felony to hit a caseworker, so slap one now while it's still a misdemeanor. You know, it's just...
It's a funny joke.
It just made me laugh when I started seeing it everywhere. I'm like, oh my goodness, that went far. You know, like, just a simple joke went that far. But then again, like I was saying, if you're going to come do an investigation on a family, do the initial intake, come with a warrant. Come with a warrant. If you were able to obtain that warrant, then clearly there was some sort of serious concern outside of just say so. Don't just come with a warrant. Don't bring an officer to intimidate you. Don't bring an officer to intimidate your client. Don't do that. That's just not fair. Making them think they will be arrested if they don't open their doors, if you don't have access to your children. Permanency laws instill more fear into parents than anything. We have no grounds to protect our children because they take them all away when it's them that's doing the most harm. And stop telling us whether or not we can be parents when we have been doing it so long, for so well, without them interfering. To see happy, well-adjusted, healthy, playful children, not children who cower at every move.
The government has ruined so many families. It's got millions of families and children. And children are not the same after they do this stuff.
My kids left to laugh. My kids love to play. They love being around the dogs. But because of this, I'm afraid to let them around either dog at the same time. Because I am so afraid somebody's going to walk by, look through a window, and call child services. All because I own pit bulls. I mean, I shouldn't have to be afraid to own a certain breed of animal. I shouldn't be afraid of that.
I agree. I wish you liked a different breed of dog myself, but that's just my personal opinion. I'm just afraid of them.
I've had pit bulls my whole life. Once I had a Springer Spaniel that bit constantly when I was a kid. And they were supposed to be very well family dogs. He wasn't. I owned a lab that lost its mind and started nipping at everything after a certain point. And pit bull, I feel more comfortable with a pit bull. I feel better protected. You know, my home is, they hear the slightest bit of noise outdoors and you would see them running from door to door trying to find out where it came from, sticking their heads in all windows. I've never had dogs that did that before. You know, I could have one dog upstairs, and if the thunder beats the wrong way, he's growling to let me know something's not right. And it's amazing when I would be able to go to bed at night and look in on my kids, and there's a dog in each of their beds, laying there until they go to sleep. Once they've gone to sleep, they go off and went to bed, you know? And I don't see how that's harming my children. I just don't understand.
When did you find out about the movie, and how did you find out?
I got a phone call from a friend of mine. I actually looked at her more like a second mother growing up. She is amazing, and she had a story of her own. Her daughter had wound up killing herself because of child services. And her daughter was amazing. She was a very good mother. And the day that I had heard what had happened to her was one of the first times that I said, I'm going to stop this. Someday I'm going to find a way to stop them. But she had called me a couple of weeks ago to tell me it was being done. And at that point, I wasn't sure if I would be able to do anything. And then she said that she was definitely going to be a part of it. And then she had called yesterday and said, I can't make it. She says, I'm not in the area. She goes, I want to be so they can hear the story of my grandbabies. And I really hope she gets a chance to meet you on the road. I really do.
Who is it?
Mona Goodbranson.
Oh, okay. I tried to call Mona on the way, and I apparently wrote down the wrong number. So I love Mona. Tell Mona that I'm going to, if we can't meet up, I have a way to do it through the magic of the internet, which is almost as good as if I was there. She'll actually be able to see me on her computer monitor, and we can do it. Oh yeah, well she's a mover and a shaker. She's
Yep, she's a very, very strong woman. I could not imagine seeing what she's seen and surviving that.
going. Thank you. Great to see you. Stay in touch. Help us spread the word.
I honestly don't think I could imagine ever being in her position.
Yeah. Did she find her daughter?
I can't remember exactly how that happened, but I do know that she relives it every day. And I honestly don't believe I could do it. She fought so hard for her grandbabies afterward, for both of them, especially that little baby Naomi. She did everything. You know, they bought a crib for her and everything that she never got a chance to sleep in, just to learn that her daughter passed clutching that crib.
In Philadelphia, a woman came. One of the people I was filming said she was trying to get somebody to come because she had gotten a lot of publicity about her story, and just it had been a number of years ago, and there hadn't been anything about it lately, and it's a story that needed to be told. And so she came, and her daughter two of her children, I don't know that they were girls, were seated on some steps out in front of their house. It's like the house with a little step up to it, a little bit of a yard, another little set of steps, and then a sidewalk. You see those? So they were sitting on the set of steps that were down closest to the road, and some guy was given a furlough to get out of prison for a day. I don't know how they do that. The guy stole a vehicle, tried to rob a store or something. The police were in a chase with him. He lost control of the car, killed, decapitated, dismembered the three children when the car hit. It like hit them up against the bricks, cut off, or found limbs in the streets. Grandmother was inside. They all lived together. Her daughter lived with every bone in her body broken. Lived for 9 hours. The mother sitting there by her side, wanting him to fight for her, even though she knew there was nothing. Surely there wasn't any hope. It's a tragic, tragic deal. The deceased mother had two other children, and they all lived with grandma. So the funeral was thousands of people because it was major news in Philadelphia. Not so much because a mother and two of her children were killed and a neighbor child, but because of the police chase and the gruesome nature of the accident, the way it happened. And Mayor Nutter of Philadelphia was there and put his arm around her and said, Brenda, if you ever need anything, you give me a call. He's laying flowers on the casket. It's quite a photo of him. The next day, Department of Children and Families, or whatever they call it in Pennsylvania, came out and took the children away.
Department of Human Services.
Took them away saying, you're so grief-stricken, we don't see how you could possibly care for these children. They lived in her house their entire life. She didn't do anything except have her daughter and her two of her grandchildren killed gruesomely on her front porch. They adopted them out. She's never been able to see them, talk to them, or do anything since the day they took them away, the day after their mother was buried. These people, there's no such thing as a heart. Oh, by the way, she's still waiting for Mayor Nutter to return her calls.
Oh, goodness gracious.
It's a pandemic. It's all over the country. 600 to 1,200 people are family court. So I'm so glad. I was going to go and try to call Mona again. Now I know I don't need to. She had emailed, said something about she was somewhere else, but she thought she might be back. Or I was confused. So
she's a wonderful woman.
Yeah.
I love her.
Well,
like a mom.
You're lucky to have her.
And I have to be honest. I mean, as gruesome as her story was, if it hadn't been, and I hate to say it, if it hadn't been for the fact that her daughter just felt like she had to give up. If Ingrid didn't feel like she just had to give up, I wouldn't fight so hard. Because I don't want Ingrid to have gone in vain.
You know, there's a man in New Hampshire named Thomas Ball who set himself on fire and killed himself in front of the family court. Wrote about a 13-page letter explaining exactly why. All the abuse that he went through the court, where they ignored all of his rights. And he burned himself up right there.
See, that's actually what happened with me, because I had actually emailed the local office and informed them of all the things they had done in violation of different laws and regulations and things like that. They attempted to contact me 1 month and 4 days after my case was closed to try to settle my grievances. After the case was closed. After, I don't know if you've heard of him, Bill Medvecki had actually sent them a message letting them know that what they had done was against an ethical code. They attempted to reopen my case and then reclosed it immediately. And then told me they wanted to settle my grievances.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
All right, well, any last words before I shut the camera off?
If there's anything anybody can do, it would be to seriously look harder at the families that are trying to survive, trying to make it, and trying to do good, and more at the children who actually need the help, who are truly being abused, who are truly being neglected, who are truly in need. and trying to actually protect children rather than trying to remove children from good homes.